Hey, good morning. I'm John F. Gately. You can call me Jack, broadcasting to you from beautiful Plymouth, Massachusetts, where it's slightly overcast this morning, but we're expecting a good stretch of weather this week, warming up later in the week, which is great. Don't forget, dads, even though Father's Day was yesterday, it's always important to remind your family the Monday after Father's Day that it's really Father's Day month. It's Father's Day month. And this morning, it's really good to remind them, hey, listen, fam, it's Father's Day month. So while you may have gotten a pair of socks or a tie yesterday, remember they still have 2 weeks to suck up to you because it really is Father's Day month. At least that's what I tell my family. And no, it doesn't work, but I tell them anyways. But hopefully you had a wonderful Father's Day yesterday. Got outside. It was a night. Went down to the canal and got some rays, read a book, and I hope that you had a great day. Totally mind-boggled by the events of this weekend. If I ramble on incoherently during today's show, there's just like there's a lot of intersectionality going on inside here based upon everything that's happened this weekend. Let's first start off, as you probably already know by now, but we'll bring it up. The man wanted in Minnesota has now been captured. You probably already knew that. Sometime around 10:30 or 11 o'clock last night in Minnesota, our time. This is the first known picture of him being captured in some field out there. So that's good news, I guess, to start the morning if you had not yet heard of that. We're going to talk about that topic coming up later into today's show. We're going to talk about the parade, which was Saturday. We're going to talk about how Maura kind of coddling Marcelo, the illegal alien, at the State House. And what type of democracy are we living in here where we say no kings, but also no audit for you, right? Right. Remember the soup Nazi? Oh, can I say Nazi? Remember the soup? No soup for you, no audit for you either. Yeah, but let's start, by the way, and glad to have you here today. Happy Monday. With an interesting story. It's an opinion piece in the Globe, and this was posted by Evan Horowitz. And I know that you all want me to get to the parade, and I'm going to get to that. But I want to talk about this story right off the bat. And I don't know who wrote this opinion piece because I don't subscribe to the Globe. So I'm not sure who wrote it, but I just love the spin on it. Happy Monday, says Evan Horowitz. And the headline is, how is Trump hurting the Massachusetts economy? Let me count the ways. And the simple fact of the matter, it seems as if this article is an admission that many of the institutions which we depend upon, the higher education institutions, MIT, the colleges, the universities, the medical research, all of that, none of that could actually survive in the open and free market. And when we look at the unhinged, disproportionate response to Trump's policies here in Massachusetts, follow the money, right? Follow the money. And a lot of it traces back to these institutions like Harvard, possibly losing a lot of money. And this article here almost seems to be an admission of it. Here's a quote that Evan put up because I haven't read the article because, again, I don't subscribe. Hold on. Here we go. If things don't work out, there may be a Massachusetts-sized hole in the safety net. Well, first off, should we have a safety net for people that, for people that are making $180,000 a year at Harvard University? They shouldn't have a safety net, right? Right. Maybe your research into frog embryos should be sustainable in the open and free marketplace rather than subsidized by the government. Oh, just a thought. That's not to say that all. I know what you're going to say next is that since like World War II, effectively MIT, especially MIT and Harvard to a great extent as well, has been effectively a research arm of the federal government, especially the military. That's true, but that's not to say that there's a whole lot of waste, inefficiency, and now far, far left politics, including anti-Semitism, coming from these institutions to the extent that it's just completely divorced themselves from their original mission. And, there's a lot to be said for the for the contributions that they've made in benchmark research that have benefited the nation from, especially, let's just say MIT. But the way these institutions have gone now is completely and utterly undemocratic. They represent the far, far left. They've been infiltrated by the far, far left. And if they actually woke up to the fact that most of the money that they get for these institutions comes from the government, they're unsustainable. And maybe that has to end, right? Maybe it has to end. Maybe these, and remember, all of the people that make money from these far, 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 far left institutions, they donate and support our far, far, far left politicians. It's a Duncan Burns money laundering scheme, circular, right? You get it. And and the rest of the nation is looking at Harvard, for instance, through Trump and saying, we're done funding you. And it's starting to make a lot more sense. All right, so let's go to the parade. Let's talk about the parade. In my experience at the parade. So I get to the parade, finally get there, and I'm there a little early. I'll take a couple of pictures. And I'm standing at 140 Clarendon, which is at the beginning of the parade. And the first thing in the parade is the motorcycles. They go by. And then there's this memorial marchers for trans folks that lost their lives in the last year. That's silent. Of course, it's very sober. You're not supposed to say anything or speak. They walk by in silence. And then it's a bunch of politicians. But strangely enough, they had banners and people, but no politicians. The only politician I saw was Mayor Wu and maybe Kim Driscoll. And I was like, that's weird. Here comes the Markey banner, but there's no Markey. So I was like, okay. And so they go by and they march into the South End. I go perpendicular along St. James because they go into the South End and then they come back on Berkeley Street. So maybe I missed everybody. I don't know. Even though I was up a couple of steps, I had a pretty good view. And I'm not tall, but I'm taller than most people. So I should have seen them. But anyways, I go down St. James. I wait for the parade to come back on Berkeley. And that's where I got all those pictures of the mayor and Markey and Elizabeth Warren and the attorney general. And by the way, I didn't even know that was the attorney. Thanks. Whoever told me that was the attorney general in the photo, I didn't know. I should have known because she had the word Joy, which is her middle name. But I've never seen her in person, so I didn't know who it was. So anyways, that's where I got all those pictures on Berkeley Street. And it dawned on me, wait a second. Now I've seen the governor's banner walk by me twice, but I didn't see the governor. And when I was back on 140 Clarendon, that's when I first heard about this horrific incident in Minnesota. And one of the posts that first alerted me was State Representative Mark Lombardo expressing his, sympathy, regret, or whatever the appropriate term would be. And because a horrific, absolutely horrific event in Minnesota. And I said to myself, okay, so I just had two chances to see the governor. This is her type of event. maybe out of an abundance of caution, she backed out, right? And I wouldn't blame her for that. But she did attend at least a small part of the event. And yeah, I don't know if they pulled the plug because of that or she had some other place to go. I have no idea. Hold on a second. Running a business. Got to answer this question here. So anyways, I never saw her, bottom line, and I didn't get a picture. But we do have something from her Instagram. Just got to answer this question here. And let's pull it up here. So she did attend at least a section of the parade. Here it is here. All right, okay. All right, okay. Hey. Let's see. Come on, let's go. Yeah, let's go. All right, okay. All right, okay. Like Berkeley Street to me. And so maybe she was just on that one little section of Berkeley Street. I don't know. And maybe she walked right by me and I didn't see her. I have no idea. The point is, it's possible she backed out because of a safety concern. And that's awful. We cannot live. We cannot tolerate. We cannot accept. We cannot for a split second say in any way except, I don't know, I'm not being tremendously eloquent this morning, any type of society where we're assassinating legislators, this is so wrong. And if the governor withdrew from the parade, again, I have no knowledge of this. Maybe she had someplace else to go. I don't know. If she withdrew from the parade because of public safety, I feel bad for her because, like, that's an event that clearly she would have enjoyed. And so I don't know why she didn't march, or maybe she did and I just missed her. I don't know. But what happened in Minnesota is just completely and absolutely must be condemned by everybody. Must be condemned by everybody. And I think the legislators in Massachusetts have made some very strong statements to their credit, as they should. It's just absolutely horrific. And there's been a wildly, how do I want to say this, varying reports as to the motive for it. And sometimes these things don't necessarily have a logical motive. But there does seem to be something to the fact that the speaker voted to deny healthcare benefits to illegals beginning in the next fiscal year. And she took that vote, and she apparently was the swing vote about 6 days ago. And that may have been it. So it's possible that this guy was an anti-Trump guy, but it's very also possible a theme that we've talked about on this show is that you can't get far left enough. It's very possible that she took a somewhat moderate position and said, we're not going to provide health care to illegal aliens. And that wasn't left enough. Yeah. So it may end up being that interpretation is also wrong. And it may end up being, and this is also very likely, I think, that we never really know the truth, that there can never be anything that can be explained, that it's just completely horrific. I don't know. But when you're striking down elected officials, I mean, that's just, we cannot live in a society like that. That must be condemned and met with the the harshest of all justice, right? And I hope this guy gets everything that's coming to him. Just unspeakable. We cannot have a society where people are afraid to run for elective office. We cannot have a society where our elected officials are afraid of marching in a parade, right? Can't do it. I would have preferred a higher police presence. I know there were police there on Saturday, but as soon as I read the news, it was like, 10:45 and the parade was just about to start. And so it was a little bit late, but there could have been a lot more cops on the street. Yeah. I think that would have been preferable before this even happened. But that's, again, I told you I'd be rambling today, and that's just how I feel about it. So I'm glad to have you. Let's see if we have any comments. Somebody reposted the stream. Well, that's fantastic. Thank you very much. Buck says, still know nothing much about the first President Trump is that. Yeah, well, that is true. So you're talking about the one that happened in Butler, Pennsylvania. Still waiting for the press conference from the officials, Buck. Yeah. When will that be? The Pennsylvania Butler, Pennsylvania press conference with the officials, federal and local officials. Still waiting for the press conference. Don't know much about it exactly. Let's see. Someone says, Angry Survivors, I can't even stand more running and high-fiving all of her illegals. Yeah. Let's switch here a little bit in terms of topics and I want to just, the parade was probably 80% gay pride parade and 20% no kings parade, as far as I perceived it. And it was a big event. There were a lot of people there. Someone said Channel 5 said there was over 1 million people. I don't know about that. There were a lot of people. Over 1 million, I think that's no, I don't think so. There were a lot of people, and it was a big event, and I certainly could have missed some things because it's impossible for one person to see everything. But in regards to the No Kings theme, because they kind of merged these two things together, the best critique of that I found from this post that I reposted this morning, and it's from New York City Councilwoman Vicky Palladino. The grand irony of these No King protests is that in deep blue cities where they took place overwhelmingly under an ironclad single-party monopoly, that sounds familiar, that more closely resembles an authoritarian regime than anything currently happening in Washington, D.C. And she goes on to explain that, of course, Washington, D.C., Republicans control both houses of Congress, yes, by very slim margins. And, of course, when you control Congress by very slim margins, you got to compromise. Conversely, let's just say Massachusetts, the Democrats control everything by super majorities, right? It's a one-party state. It's a one-party state. There's not a king, but there's a lot of princesses and princesses. You know the thing. Right? There's no king. There's no queen. But there's a lot of princes. As you know the thing. There's a lot of dukes and duchesses. We'll just say that. There's a lot of people. There's no one single king, but there's a lot of like little fiefdoms. Yeah, that's a good way to, right? But there's no king in Massachusetts, but it feels like you're living in an authoritarian, upside down, Orwellian environment. And this poster here that I didn't actually post this until this morning, authoritarian extreme danger. And I really think they're talking about Massachusetts Democrats. Rule of law. They ignored immigration law to support an invasion. Democratic process. They defied the voter-approved ballot question, which 72% of us voted for. Freedom of speech is on this poster. Of course, they used big tech to coordinate with the government to silence your free speech during the pandemic. They do all the things that they're accusing us of doing, yet they're the ones that are in power. Like, you can't make this stuff up. And yesterday or sometime over the weekend, Dizog, who is a solid Democrat, do not confuse her with Tulsi Gabbard. She is a solid Democrat. She actually stood up and said two things. She said that Trump is trying to be a king. Okay. All right. She's a Democrat. But then she also had the temerity, how dare she say this, to stand up and say, hey, we're saying no kings, but you're subverting democracy. Listen to what she said over the weekend. I think this was in Chelmsford.
I can't think of a better example of a threat to democracy than 72% of the electorate voting for a law and passing it into law, and our elected officials saying, we're just going to break it. We're just going to break it. Because that reminds us of what?
That reminds us of Trump. And so she's equating the legislature dragging their feet on the ballot question, which has now been, 6-7 months since it passed, 8 months. And she's equating the legislature with...
It reminds us of what's happening at the federal level. And no one is above the law. No one is above the law.
And people clap. People clap
think
because she's right. She's right. She is right. And at least in the first half of her statement. And just to be perfectly clear, she followed this up with the clarification. I don't support Trump, is what she said. And I don't support lawbreaking by the heads of the Democratic establishment. I am who I am. And if it pains you so much to don't follow me or whatever, let's get this audit done. But she realizes that if you're going to talk about subverting democracy, why don't you start by looking in your own house first? Even some people on the left, like, I don't know, Jim Browdy understands this.
It seems to me you can make a case that no power of government should be used if the issue is that it may be used unscrupulously. Obviously, if something is done
what he's saying is that there's some people that are criticizing the potential audit because it might be done unscrupulously. Well, that's something that you police on the back end, right, Jim?
Scrupulously, then you move against the action because of that alone. Is the argument as ridiculous as it appears to be?
It literally is as ridiculous as you're saying. And you're exactly right. Your instincts are exactly right. This is really stonewalling by the legislature, and the arguments, the hand wringing,
72% of us voted for it. It hasn't happened. The auditor has tried. The attorney general is dragging her feet. The governor herself could step in. Not that she has any official power in this particular case, but she's the leader of the party. She could step in and make it happen, but she won't. Of course she won't. No, she doesn't want it. And the only thing I've heard her say is that she expects everyone to comply with it. And that was like 5 or 6 months ago she said that. Since then, she said nothing. It's all been all Trump all the time because they're trying to protect their money for the research institutions, because that's all that really matters to them, because that's all that really matters to their base. I told you. Yep. I told you that once the 18-year-old is released on bond, the left will claim victory and assert that ICE made a mistake. Don't be surprised if Maura invites him to the State House or visits his home. He'll be held up as a victim, hailed as a hero, and his father will remain at large. I told you. But what I didn't know was how just utterly creepy this visit to the State House would be. This visit to the State House will be. Let's see if we can make this picture bigger. There we go. There. These pictures are just creepy. This is like very Joe Biden-ish, an emotional conversation that lasted an hour. These pictures are so Joe Biden-ish. Look, she's all over him. John Featherston says, woke, progressive, horrible governor posing with an illegal alien in her taxpayer-paid office, attempting to make him into a martyr. That's right, John. Poster child for her agenda, using the kid to fit her narrative. As I said, I'm quoting the old Bob Dylan song, he's just a pawn in the game. Do you still believe her when she says Massachusetts is not a sanctuary state? And there she is again with her hand on it. It's creepy. It is totally like Biden-ish. Though she's all over this kid. And then here again is the same picture from before. And then I just kind of was riffing off the old Obama, if I had a son, he'd look like Trayvon quote. Fortunately, ICE had enough. This sent Todd Lyons from ICE into a tizzy. Head of ICE says government, and I don't blame him, says Governor Healy and Mayor Wu have touted lawlessness. And they have. This kid is here in our country illegally. And he's getting rosary beads in the governor's office from the governor. It's surprising to me, but I can't believe that his picture is not in this frame. I mean, we are just like days away before the governor actually puts Marcelo's picture in that empty picture frame. Y'all know the backstory. The reason why that's where the picture of the prior governor is supposed to go. Some governor that you admire, you as the governor, you as the current governor get to pick a portrait of a prior governor, any one of the prior governors, but she left it blank so that everyone can see themselves as a future governor. Yeah, but so my feeling is it's just a matter of time before Marcelo's picture is up there. Yeah, because everyone's Marcelo, right? It is kind of creepy. Every picture that got released, she's like right there with him, like all over. It's Biden-ish. What did Todd Lyons say? Politicians like Mayor Wu and Governor Healy have loudly touted lawlessness over law and order. Their prioritization of criminal aliens in communities across the state should speak volumes to their constituents. Well, it does, except the constituents support it. As these elected officials, or a lot of them do, welcome those flouting national laws, ICE brave law enforcement officers protecting public safety will continue to perform the job they refuse to do. Thank you, Todd Lyons. I wish you were the governor of Massachusetts. Is there some way Todd Lyons can run for governor? Because sign me up. I like what I hear. Understand, and you read this in a lot of these news articles. So-and-so was arrested, but he has no criminal record. Most of the illegal aliens that were arrested have no criminal record. That's actually probably not true. But so-and-so got arrested and he has no criminal. You hear this all the time. And understand what that is. That is an effort to legalize the invasion. What they are saying inversely is the only way you can get deported is by committing a crime or being charged with a crime. And what does that really mean? That basically means that everybody else gets amnesty. That's what that is. Let's have our new famous U.S. Senator, now famous because he's a gate crasher at a press conference, Alex Padilla, explain this is what the Democrats want. The Democrats want amnesty. They've always wanted amnesty. And this is what they're now saying.
Not despite the immigrant population, but thanks to the contributions of so many immigrants as workforce, as consumers, and as entrepreneurs. So again, focus on the dangerous, violent criminals. No disagreement there. But
okay. Well, that's nice of you.
The folks who are otherwise law-abiding, tax-paying, and enriching communities, there's got to be a better way, a pathway towards legalization, a pathway to citizenship for drinking.
No. How about, no, there does not have to be a better way. The way is back home. Go back home. You don't belong here. You came into our country illegally. Go back. Go back to where you came from. But really, what they're really saying when they say, oh, they arrested Pablo and Pablo doesn't have any criminal record, he doesn't need to be. He doesn't need to have a criminal record. All he needs to be is here illegally. That's it. Because when you say we're only arresting people with criminal record, no. If you're here illegally, you are subject to deportation. That's not kidnapping. That's called enforcing our border law. That's respecting the rule of law. Right? When we talked earlier in the show, when we showed you that picture from, here it is here again. And we showed you this picture from Boston Common, when it says rule of law, authoritarianism is an extreme danger to the rule of law. Understand, when they promote amnesty, they are promoting authoritarianism, which is a danger to the rule. They don't want to enforce our immigration law. They are pro-invasion. Can't make this stuff up. It's like, it's almost, as I said, like so much happened over the weekend. And because we live in this like weird bubble of Massachusetts, sometimes like it's really hard to wrap your head around what is normal. Because every input that you get is like, it's like living in what I can only imagine it was like to live in Soviet Russia. Like like no matter how independently thinking you want to be, it's hard to be, because every input is divorced from reality, right? It's just massive. It's just hard to believe. Now, we talked about the horrific incident in Minnesota and how like we cannot tolerate that in any way, shape, or form. The strongest message must be sent, and how intolerable that event was, right? Strongest message must be sent. And I hope if there's more people that are involved, they all get prosecuted to the absolute fullest extent of the law. When we talk about what's happening in that event, we don't know quite yet where the motive is. But when I hear someone like Congressman Lynch, who I used to believe was the last reasonable Democrat in Massachusetts, he has now totally lost it. You might remember he now has a primary opponent. We actually featured the primary opponent's video on this show because it was a really good video. Not that I agree with probably anything that his primary opponent has to say, but the quality of his video, his announcement video, it was a great announcement video. So Mr. Lynch, congressman from South Boston, now has an opponent, and now he's gone completely far lefty. And we've talked about this, about how the Democrat Party just keeps on pushing left and left. Like, just like Ronald Reagan used to say, hey, who used to be a Democrat, I didn't leave the Democrat Party. They left me, the famous Reagan quote. And I actually said this about Mayor Wu last week. 2015 Mayor Wu, the version of Michelle Wu from 2015 is now a Republican, right? Right? Michelle Wu in 2015 is now a Republican in 2025. And that's sadly what's happened to the formerly last sane Democrat in Massachusetts. This is a quote of his. It's really sad, but this is what happens when Democrats have a primary. Here he is here. Oh, my face is on top of him a little bit. Let's fix that. We'll go to the smaller version of this. There we go here. Listen to what he said at some hearing in Washington, D.C. Congressman Stephen Lynch from RNC Research. Listen.
Proud of my Democratic colleagues who are willing to stand up to this thuggery. Trump is a wannabe gangster, and he's showing the world what he's about. And I'm proud. You know, my dad served in Second World War. He fought the Nazis in
All right, this is the part. He fought the Nazis. So Mr. Lynch's father served in the Second World War. Thank you. God bless him. And this is really sad what happens next.
Southern Africa. He fought the Nazis on the Italian peninsula. And I think he's looking down right now and he's happy that I'm fighting today's Nazis. He's proud of that.
He's proud. My dad is proud that I'm fighting today's Nazis. This is from who I thought was the last reasonable Democrat in Massachusetts. And now that he has a primary opponent, he's gone full Mrs. Potato Head, right? Because he looks in the mirror and he sees Mike Capuano. That's what he said. He looks in the mirror. He sees Mike Capuano, who got beaten by Mrs. Potato Head, and he recognizes that he has a primary opponent from the left. So he's completely off his meds, right? He's lost it. The problem with Mr. Lynch in this argument that he's fighting today's Nazis is that there are some people, sadly, that are going to hear that and they're going to say, wow, if they were alive in the 1930s, what would you do to stop Hitler? You've heard this like theoretical argument before. Anything. You would do anything. Well, Nazis exist today. You should stop them. And when you have leaders like elected leaders like Congressman Lynch out there equating people that otherwise in any other state would be just like normal moderate people, equating them with Nazi, then you're laying the groundwork for violence. You're laying the groundwork for what we saw in Minnesota. It was incredibly irresponsible as an elected official. And sad. I mean, completely sad, especially when it happens to someone that you used to think was semi-reasonable. Karen Spilka. She said it more than once. This is a headline from this weekend's Herald. Spilka compares ICE arrest to Adolf Hitler's rise to power. This is not news. She's done this before. She was on Channel 5 on the record or something like that 3 or 4 weeks ago. Said the same thing. Before. This is not a new spin for her. But incredibly dangerous rhetoric. Incredibly dangerous rhetoric. They have just totally and absolutely lost it. This is what happens when you have your elected officials villainizing federal law enforcement, for instance, and just people that they don't agree with. I wish we could live in a state like Florida. They just did something which I think is fantastic. Florida launches program to protect ICE agents and their families who are doxxed, AG says. Tallahassee. The Florida Attorney General announced a new program under which the Florida Highway Patrol will conduct routine patrols and checkups on the families of ICE agents who have been doxxed or had their personal information revealed publicly. The initiative, announced Thursday, aims to protect these agents and their families amid escalating tensions surrounding immigration enforcement. Doxing is not going to happen. We've set up a program where ICE agents that they believe that their families are at risk can request routine checkups and patrols to make sure their families are okay, to keep an eye on their agents, their homes, and their families. We want them here. We want them protecting our society. But while they're protecting our families, we're going to protect theirs. Oh my God, can I live? Do I need, like, when you read this, like, why isn't our Republican candidates for governor coming up with proposals like this? In the meantime, here we live in Massachusetts, the one-party state. You cannot blame anything that happens in Massachusetts on Republicans, because there are hardly any elected Republicans. It's a supermajority state. So when over the weekend, there was a shooting at a diner, which I go to. I was stunned. South Street Diner, which used to be, what did it used to be called? Blue Plate or something like that. I've been going it since it was the Blue Diner or whatever. Blue Diner. I think it was just called Blue Diner on South Street, of course. Person shot inside the diner, right in front of other folks eating. Now they're all witnesses. Shooter bailed on foot into Chinatown. 4:00 in the morning. It's a 24-hour joint. If you have never been, I would recommend it. And then there was a subsequent shooting on Utica Street, which is a small little almost alley thing about a half block away. Astounding. I was, after I went to the No Kings parade, gay pride parade, I went to go have a burger downtown Crossing. One of the reasons I picked this burger place is because the burgers are really good, and it has windows that overlook downtown Crossing, or a section of downtown Crossing. You can watch the whole world go by and enjoy your burger. So I go there from time to time. So I'm enjoying my burger, watching the whole world go by, blah, blah, blah. And then I look down at my plate. And as I head down and look down my plate, my vision goes from far away to closer. I see some guy in a vehicle directly outside my window, outside the restaurant window, counting money. What's going on? That's a lot of money, I said to myself. And I actually said to the diner next to me, I says, that guy's got a lot of money. And because I'm who I am, I have my camera in my hand, which is also my cell phone, obviously. And I just hit the record button because, so I'm in the restaurant and I'm recording what subsequently became a drug deal at downtown Crossing. I couldn't believe it. So I sped it up. You can hear the restaurant in the background. And that's a lot of money. A lot of money. And the part at the end is like, they're so cool. There goes the drugs. And hold on. They talk it over. Oh, handshake. Knuckle bump. And then the guy gives you, watch this. Oh, at the end, I may have cut it out. At the end, it's so much money, he gives him an extra elastic. And then he sticks the money into his waistband and they get out. But all of this, like, I'm just eating my burger and I'm like, what did I just see? That was not a $20 drug deal. That was not $100. That was I don't know how much money that was. That was a lot of money. Remember, that's on double speed. But this is Massachusetts. This happens all the time, apparently. All the time. When you villainize your opponents to the point where they're now Nazis, I mean, we are just at the point where you can't say anything in a uniparty state. Otherwise, you're not. I mean, it's just a really horrifically dangerous intersection for moment. Do I dare use the word moment for Massachusetts and for our country? When you have who used to be reasonable calling everybody he disagrees with a Nazi, it's just really, it's awful. It's awful. There was an awful event up in Brookline where somebody threw a Free Palestine brick through a Jewish deli window. Here is the owner, or one of the owners of the deli. He's going to explain.
Attack on the Jewish people of Boston. Nobody should be fearful of coming to get kosher food. My name is Gili. I'm one of the owners of the butchery, the only kosher Jewish store in the Boston area. So we came in this morning and we saw a hole through the...
There's your hole right through the window. You saw the video. And by the way, courtesy of Cassie Akiva at the Daily Wire.
Window, a brick was thrown in last night at about 1 o'clock in the morning. We have videos from the cameras all around it,
There's the perp right there in a mask, Very intimidating, right, Mayor Wu?
the building, and we handed it over to the police department, which they're saying that they're investigating this case.
Is there two perps? It kind of looks like there's two people running there.
The brick said Free Palestine. It's been here for the past 50 years.
50 years, the store.
This has never happened in the butchery history, no. There's a non-political statement here. This is a map of Israel with all the best wines that Israel has to offer.
Well, there is your problem, Mr. I forgot your name. There is your problem. When you point out the exceptional wines of Israel, the problem is they don't want Israel at all. So there's your problem, right? They want to push you into the sea. They want to push you into the they don't want Israel at all. That's the problem, right? In essence, that's the problem. All credit to, and again, this is also from Casey Akiva, all credit to the people that showed up yesterday afternoon. I think Scott Hayes was there. Give him some credit as well to support the store. Good for them out there. Supporting the store with their Israeli flags and their American flags. Great to see that. When you saw things pop off in the Middle East over the last 3 or 4 days, you knew there were going to be more incidences locally here in Massachusetts. And, well, there you go. There it is. One thing that I noticed about the parade when I was there yesterday, and here's a picture of the mayor I took while she was marching. A couple of things. The absence of a couple of things. You know how so much I talk on this show that as a political observer, you want to observe what happens, right? But there's this other skill which you really need to sharpen, and that's observe what didn't happen, because sometimes that's even super more important. And what did not happen yesterday, as I observed the parade, was there weren't a lot of people with the pro-Hamas, what do you call that Khalifa thing? The black and white checked head garment thing. Hardly any of those people. I saw a lot of those people at the State House earlier in the week on Tuesday, whatever it was. Saw a lot of them at the State House Tuesday. I hardly saw any of those people Saturday. Hardly any of those people. I don't even know if I saw one of them. So they were absent from the parade. I'm not really sure. I don't know enough about the far left. I'm not really sure if those two groups, like the gay pride folks and the radical Islamists, I don't really know. My hunch is that they're not compatible because they weren't there. They weren't there on Saturday. They were in force last Tuesday at the State House, but I did not see them on Saturday. Didn't see them on Saturday. The other thing that I did not see, and I guess this is not a new observation, but it was new for me because I had never been to a gay pride parade. But the other thing that was absent was, especially in the 55 to 75 age bracket, that age bracket approximately, and that was men. And hardly any mention, again, big event. Maybe I missed it, but hardly any mention of AIDS. At the beginning of the parade, as I said, the motorcycles went, and then there was the trans memorial, but no AIDS memorial, unless I missed it. And just overall in the crowd, especially absence of men 55 to 75. Why? Because they passed like way too early. And to see what's taken place or taken their place, the proportion of trans activism dialed way up in Saturday's event relative to the overall human population, and definitely a diminishment of gay men, especially older gay men, and as far as I could see, any discussion of AIDS. I literally didn't see that, which is just like, I looked, I saw a couple of people with the silence equals death t-shirt, which is the iconic AIDS Action logo from the late 80s, early 90s that, you know, they used to spray paint all over the city on the sidewalks and stuff at the height of the AIDS epidemic. But like really missing that age component, and in its place seemed to, like, the trans thing just dialed up to 11. Literally, like, where you would think that the first thing in the parade after the motorcycles go first is a safety matter. Just like you always put the fire engines at the beginning of any parade, in case they have to go someplace to fight a fire. You would think that immediately thereafter, the first thing that you would have would be the AIDS memorial. It wasn't there. And I was just like, I know this is not a new observation, but it was new to me. And it was just amazing in its absence. And I think that overall, at large, you know, certainly suffering from the absence of men. I mean, like, look at almost all of our leaders in Massachusetts are women. Right? And remember when we were told that everything would be better if our elected officials were women? I don't know. Let's see. Rose Thorne says, the uniparty in the state, there are no Republican politicians. Well, there's a handful, but not many. Definitely, we have we are living in the super minority if you're a Republican. And as a result, of course, we have a lot of, let me get my air quotes, Republicans that are uniparty, which I think is Rose's point here. And you can see that, Rose, by the way, when you look at who votes for the state budget. Let's take it right back to that. The state budget is the most important vote of the year for your average state representative, unless they're going to vote on something like the death penalty or something, which hardly ever comes up at all. But on any given year, the state budget's the most important vote. And when you have like just a handful of the Republican caucus voting against it, you realize that the majority of the Republican caucus are just uniparty members that happen to have an R next to their name. Let's just take the Republican and Democrats out of it. and just call it majority and minority. If you're a member of the minority party, whatever political affiliation you are, you cannot vote for the majority budget. As a matter of principle, if you vote for the majority budget, you're not actually part of the minority. All right, sorry for the rambling show. There's just so many things. The intersectionality is just getting to me. And the events of the weekend were troubling, to say the least. And thank you so much for posting and reposting and all those things in your comments here today. I really appreciate that. We'll be back tomorrow. That's the plan at 9 a.m. We'll see you then. Bye-bye. Have a great day. Happy Father's Day month. Bye-bye.